Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 27th. Welcome to the weekly SIG testing meeting. I'm your bearded host, Aaron Krickenberger. This is a publicly recorded meeting and will be posted to YouTube forever and ever and ever. First up, I wanted to have a bit of follow-up to a discussion that happened here last week while I was down at Helm Summit, and then I think followed up in contributor experience, sort of just around how can we responsibly roll out new automation. And I think there's consensus on this based on like the thumbs up emojis I have and the comment I posted, right? But history, as I understand it, is there have been a couple times where we've turned on things without giving people a heads up. And sometimes that can be seen as being disruptive, or things are just happening without people understanding why. And so I kind of want to broadly propose that going forward, we try and make sure as we look to introduce new things automation-wise that the proposals are floated between SIG testing and SIG contributor experience. I think contributor experience sort of thinks of the end user experience. I think SIG testing thinks a lot of the implications of how that ties together with all of the automation that we already have. You get that proposal there, you implement it, and then float out sort of the what this is, why we're doing it, and why you should care thing at Kubernetes Dev prior to rolling out. And ideally, if there's some way we can do opt-out, that would be great. I mean, generally speaking, I think with a couple exceptions, we've been pretty good about turning things on at an org-wide level that don't actually do anything unless the user explicitly acts. But there are, we did have the issue with like the Feta bot automatically commenting / lifecycle on all these issues, and we it got rolled out, and then people started giving feedback, and maybe the motivations for why it was rolled out and why those durations were chosen wasn't as widely communicated. And I did see a proposal flow through SIG testing, but I just think it wasn't sort of given out to the wider audience. So I linked the thing that has 5 thumbs up emojis now, just like that sketch of like bullet points, roll it out through those people, do it through Kubernetes Dev, do lazy consensus for Kubernetes Dev. And Matt Fisher from Helm has showed up here to, if you have anything to clarify. But I agree with his point that like when I talk about broadcasting a Kubernetes Dev prior to rollout, it's not to get everybody to say, yes, let's go. It's more to have somebody say, hang on, I really don't want this, just in true lazy consensus fashion. So I'm thinking in terms of on the order of weeks. And if there are process changes that are significantly larger, I'm looking to Kubernetes, to the contributor experience SIG, who's planning on sort of workshopping, taking a roadshow to each individual SIG and just giving them a tour of like what we do today. Thoughts?
But policy is supposed to be laid out on the org structure, right? So if anything that's in Kubernetes, once we've trimmed that down, the Kubernetes org policy can be enforced and adhered to. Anything in the SIG area needs to have buy-in. Anything outside of that is dealer's choice, right?
Yeah. I'm just acting as if the world we have today is there might be some things in the Kubernetes org that doesn't strictly adhere to that policy right now. And so rather than try and converge everything to that policy, I just want to have the same approach that can be used across both orgs going forward, right? So make it clear for those who have their repositories in like not as strictly as enforced orgs that they can get that capability too, and give people in the core org that capability is coming.
Yeah, no objection.
Okay.
And yeah, no objection from me either. That summary was exactly what what you and I discussed over at the Helm Summit too. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. While I have you here, the one quick thing I noticed when I was looking over is Helm has its own size labels, like size small, size medium, size large. And we also have a Proud plugin that automatically applies a size /XS, S, M, L, XL, that sort of stuff. Those seem to be, I don't know if it would be worthwhile to turn off the size plugin for the Helm repo, or if you guys still need your manual labels, or if you're fine with having both of those happen. But that would just be an example of like, maybe that could help you and be less work for you guys.
Yeah, I think the t-shirt size labels are actually being applied automatically for us by Proud. And so those the PRs that are coming in are actually being used that, and we do actually use that as part of our contribution experience as well. So we do have that in our contributing doc. So we're kind of embracing as much as we possibly can from upstream org too. So I think this is great too. Are you noticing there are other labels that are not being applied by Prow?
The labels that are in the doc are literally that have the words like small, medium, and large as opposed to the, right. So maybe the contributing doc is a little out of date.
Yeah, the contributing doc's probably out of date. Ever since that feature was turned on, we've since started using whatever Prow has been applying as the policies.
Okay. On a related note, I have a fork somewhere where I'm trying to hack up that labels.yaml file and then add fields like description and whether it applies to issues or PRs, and I'm trying to generate doc out of that. I don't really know where the best place is for that to live long term. I had it just posted somewhere that I think got posted around. I'll try and chat with some folks after this meeting or at the end of it if we have time. But I'd like to move on to the next thing, which is just generally speaking, I got the impression we had some queue bumpiness. Are we feeling good about that? Is there anything we collectively should keep in mind as we look to code freeze and the release burn down coming at us?
Queue bumpiness should mostly have been from an upstream problem, which is now fixed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I showed up to SIG AWS last week just to say hi, and Justin's the first words out of Justin's mouth were like, I know, COPS is failing, don't worry, I'm on it. I'm like, oh, okay, my reputation precedes me. Next, Steve, you managed to add something on the agenda about Aliased job support in Prow's config. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is something that I think a couple of PRs recently went in from Cole, I think, that made the execution of different jobs for different branches that report under the same status. It made that logically flow a little bit better. And I guess the intent there is if we have different implementations or different configs for the same job per branch, we still want that to be semantically named something. And we were just setting this up for a couple of the OpenShift origin repos. Is kind of kludgy right now. And I didn't know if, maybe Ben or Cole, if we had any thoughts about do we want to maybe have a first class concept of here's the mapping between branch to job for this.
What problems did you give them?
No problems. It's just a lot of copy paste, right? Because it's going to be the same trigger words, the same everything else.
Right. I think what I wanted for that was the more advanced job presets, which would sort of look like that. I think we're doing okay with pod presets for now. And I don't think the copy paste is necessarily that bad because you do want an explicit config for this branch.
Yeah, I don't know that we would gain.
Eventually they start to diverge anyhow. And you want to freeze the older branches in place. So
yeah, that makes sense.
More of a first class thing.
Okay. Yeah, I was just sitting there explaining, the next step is you copy paste this 6 times. But yeah, that makes sense. Cool. That's all I had.
I'm muted. Okay, cool. Next, Shiny demos. Ryan, I can't wait to see what you have to show us on the user dashboard on Prow. You guys ready to share screen and all that?
Yep, I actually just need to find it. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the user dashboard. Will include every open PR or your PR for now. So here is two main information. So whether the tests are pass, fail, or pending. And the second information is the merge requirement. So the merge requirement is display a table. So the first row is just listing all of the label that you are currently have in your repo. Your PR. And the second row is going to display the query. For each query, will say what kind of label that you are missing for the required label and which what are the labels that you have but is forbidden, so which means you shouldn't have it. So if you want to know more about the query, you can click on this button. It shows the query itself. So this is like every label about the query. And that's it. And about the tests, so you can I think it's pretty much like browse status. So it's include every test that run on the PR. So you can click to them. It's will link to the Kubernetes jobs, and it has a status indicator. So in case if there is any test that fail, it will show you the test that failed first. But if all tests are passed, it just truncate every like collapse on the jobs.
Is this for your PRs that you've submitted, or is this for reviewers assigned PRs?
Actually, your PR only. My PR. This is my PR. If you log into this page, you will see all of your PR. This is your PR, your open PR.
So would it be possible to, just as a feature request, to potentially combine, as a reviewer who reviews like 1 million PRs, knowing the labels and seeing it all in a table-ish fashion, like Kubernetes on roids, would be super duper helpful, because I don't even know how many reviews I do in a single week.
Yeah, right.
What kind of labels are you interested in? Because this one's more about devs answer the question of why is my PR not merging, which the SIG currently has some functionality for. And it's less about you as a reviewer, you should hopefully not be worrying so much about why random PRs aren't merging. You should just be doing your step. But what labels were you thinking of wanting to see?
Because a lot of times we do a 2-step validation. So there's only a finite number of approvers, but there's a larger pool of reviewers. So knowing that the LGTM label has been applied to a subset of things that I'm on the backlog for actually helps me. It's my prioritization list. And I use GitHub right now to actually do that filtering for me. So I have a bunch of crap GitHub filters that I use that kind of cobble together to make this happen.
If you look at the Kubernetes PR dashboard, currently does mix together things that need approval with things that haven't, like it doesn't filter properly for showing you things that need approval and don't have LGTM yet. But I think I'm going to make that change soon. So your incoming on Kubernetes will only be things that either you're a reviewer for or that are already have LGTM and you need to approve. I think that would solve most of it.
So this is mainly for the people who are trying to figure out why is my PR not merging.
Yeah, because the author is ultimately responsible for making sure their stuff merges.
We've had some existing discussion about potentially expanding it to just show PRs and default to your PRs, but have ways to tune the filtering to other things. We might be able to make that sophisticated enough to tune to the ones you're reviewing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, being able to see like why is PR number X not merging, or what are its merge requirements could be interesting too. Since people want to see other users' PRs or a PR they're really interested in, why is this?
Ultimately, we'd like to augment the tied status with a link to this that shows a specific status for the information for just a single specific PR, so that if you're on any PR page on GitHub, you can click the details link and it will take you to this page for that PR.
I don't have a link handy, but there's been some discussion about this in test infra. I think that's going to happen, but right now the endpoint is only designed for getting your. It should be pretty straightforward to expand to that, and definitely the focus is on being able to link to it from Tide and for users to be able to see their PRs. But I think we can expand it to more. And also we can make the queries as fancy as we need because it uses the token when you log in. So you're only DOSing yourself, making the query more complex. We should be able to do that.
So I think the only constructive feedback that I have would be to solicit feedback from new users, such as those who are kind of coming in from Contribex, who are getting shepherded, because they would be the primary consumers of this. Because a lot of times I see new folks struggle terribly with trying to get their PRs in and trying to retest and figure out what labels they're missing and why.
I don't want to derail too much here, but Aaron, your labels descriptions, if you could make that consumable, I'd like to extend this so that you can hover the labels or get a link to that.
Okay.
because this tells you what labels you need to fix, but the next step is we need a way to explain how do I fix this label. We have a little bit there for this, but I'd really like to give more detail.
Okay.
That sounds great.
I will sync up with you offline because, yeah, it's just additional fields in a YAML file right now. If we need to go further, let's talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I think this is friggin' cool. I saw the proposal go by, and it's pretty neat to see it in action. So I think all those steps forward in improving, in refining the query and making Tide ultimately point to this are perfect. This seems like you can demo it in front of Contribx anytime you want to, and there's maybe a community-facing demo that happens in like a week or two.
Some of these changes that we're seeing here are local. There's some pretty important fixes. We'll need to roll out new deck publicly to make that better. I'm apprehensive about doing that right now, though. After yesterday's queue issues, I think I'm going to wait until tomorrow, actually.
That's totally fine. I was thinking on the order of not this upcoming Thursday, but the Thursday after that. It might be a little more baked and usable live.
Depending on if we have the changes in to make this look at any PR for the larger demo, it might be nice to find a PR that has, failing tests or whatever, and show off more of the features.
Yeah, but obviously during code freeze, you don't want to break everything.
Yeah, I understand, and so that's what I wasn't sure if this doesn't. It doesn't seem to me like rolling this out would be disruptive of the existing stuff that we have. But I defer to you guys if you think that this would disrupt anything.
It's more that rolling this out is related to rolling out PROW updates currently, and I'd rather not muck with how we roll out PROW updates, and I'd rather not roll out a PROW update.
Okay. Do I take that? Do I understand that to mean you don't want to touch PROW during code freeze, or you're just
specifically today after yesterday's? Yeah. We should be able to touch PROW, but given that we've had some submit queue backlog, usually this stuff doesn't break. But just after how much time was wasted the other day, I'd rather.
For sure. While we're in the spotlight, got it. Okay, Ryan, you're up next. So thanks a ton for that demo. That's cool. I'm trying to keep us moving along. Ryan, you wanted to talk a little bit about cross compilation for smoke testing.
Yeah, I don't have a demo handy right now, but it's not too interesting when it's working. Basically, we've been having occasional cross build failures where the Windows or the Mac build will just fail because someone checks in code that uses Linux systems or whatever. I've had a PR out for about a month now, I think, that will do a cross type check, not a full compile, but it will parse and try to see if the semantics work for everything. And this can verify that in a couple of minutes for the whole repo, for the Kubernetes repo. And hopefully that will mean that we can prevent breaking the Windows build or the Mac builds altogether. And there's some future work where I think it could be a good check because right now building and testing is abstracted from devs to the point where we see a lot of PRs that don't even build every day. And I'm hoping that I can get it fast enough that there's some sort of pre-submit level in 2 seconds, check that the files that you've changed are still buildable. And we can get better verification like that. Just so people have better edit debug cycles. I know it's kind of painful right now. And of course, Kubernetes makes very large binaries, so the whole linking phase takes a long time. And the type checker does no linking, so you can avoid all of that. It takes about 20 seconds to do a full type check for one architecture, or for one platform architecture combination. Yeah, I don't think it will get in before the code freeze. There's been a chain of bugs in Go's libraries for type checking that I've been discovering, but it should hopefully be in soon after code freeze and prevent future issues.
Okay. Is this the sort of thing we could put in as a non-blocking test for now to get further confidence, or are you saying the issues you're having are more around just getting it merged in the first place?
Mostly just trying to get it merged in the first place. It's just got a lot of things. I need to verify it works on Mac, and just little issues where I'm forking an upstream thing because the current types package doesn't work for us, but it itself has bugs, and I don't want to diverge too much from it to fix one-off bugs. But it should be able to live in the verify job and be fine there.
Okay, cool. That was going to be my next question, whether it made sense to do it as a separate job or as part of verify, because verify is kind of a beast, right? It does a whole bunch more than just that.
It should be a separate job. Verify is not something we should encourage.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still in the docs, but at one point the docs encouraged you to run make verify before you submit in a PR, and it takes like over an hour. At least it did on my laptop.
Dealing with verify is somewhere on my backlog. We should not expand that job. But not only should we run it as a separate job, we're considering, if we get things stable with it, making it a pre-step for all the build jobs so they can fail out faster. And using the full cross-check to replace most instances of running the cross-build.
Okay, that's all my other questions answered.
Are you okay with merging it as a verified job to start and then moving it out as we get the other stuff ready? Because the interactivity of hack/verify type check is pretty nice.
Verify blocking though?
Yes.
Yes, if you want it to be non-blocking, it needs to be a separate job, right?
Right. It should be a separate job, and we should consider moving it out at some point so that we can patch it independently of the releases. Verify is also versioned by release anyhow. So since most of the code for what happens in verify is in Kubernetes.
All right, I'll make verify skip it for now.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Because I was thinking if I'm going to try and get in a docs somewhere here soon this week about criteria for non-blocking to blocking for tests, and so I think it'd be good to like walk the path of show you've got data, show the data is mostly green, then use that to go from non-blocking to blocking. Okay, cool. I've been seeing progress on that. That looks really cool. Ben, speaking of fast pre-submits, I think you have some things to say.
Super quick update. I've got the Bazel remote cache pretty stable now. There are a few things that need working on. It works, but like there are some performance improvements and things we could do. We've rolled it out to some of the CI jobs as well as pull Kubernetes Bazel test, which runs our unit tests. And we've seen about a 70 to 80% reduction in test time for Bazel test. So we've got that down to around 6 minutes on average instead of like 25 plus. I'm hoping we can bring it down further, and I've got some other changes headed out for that. So when we're talking about people making blocking jobs, I'm hoping we can avoid any of them being longer because I think we can get the existing jobs down to run a lot faster.
That's really cool. I'm assuming this doesn't substantively change the duration of like the longer end-to-end tests, right? This is mostly about the unit jobs. You're still muted.
There's some things I'm going to do for that. I'm going to, at some point, we're going to flip this on for build. The concern is there's some things that don't cache very well, and there's some other fixes that need to be made first. But since the build will be a little bit faster and will be cached, that will speed up the end-to-ends because most of them are using the Bazel build now, but not significantly compared to their overall test link. What is going to fix that is getting rid of some of the other local caching as we rolled this out. And once we get rid of some of the local caching, we can throw more resources at our jobs because we won't be restricted in how many run on a machine. So we can play around with machine sizes and things like that.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's been really neat seeing the graphs, change sharply in the issue you linked there. Tim, test blocking jobs per release seems brittle. Is it you?
Yeah, it's totally me. It's just there has to be like a PR for every single release cycle into the jobs list for a release blocker. And it just, as we go forwards and eventually the artifacts are built from Bazel, I don't know if anyone has thought about unifying the fact that we always do end through n-2 for releases. And instead of us having to PR this super long modification for the jobs list, of just being able to support the n through n-2.
That has mostly happened. There are a few other things, like we versioned the tools by release. They make it so it's still not quite as good, but Sen has actually moved most of our job names to internally being like based on the n-1 thing.
Yeah, they're like stable 1 through stable 3.
But you still have to do things like add test grid entries or
yeah, that's the bit, is that people add the test grid entry. Every single release you have to do a PR, and I'm tracing through Lucas's history of how he did things, and it's kind of like watching a sausage being made of how it was done. So
it's a lot less complicated this cycle than it has been, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Yeah, I think the 1.6 jobs were the biggest thing we needed to roll off before everything had followed that stable 1, stable 2, stable 3 prefix. I think the thing is just that as humans still feel a lot more confident and understand what they're looking at when like the test grid tabs have the actual release number in there, as opposed to what's this n-1 thing? What does n mean today versus tomorrow? That question would come up a lot.
Yeah, because the test grid for release still shows like, we are into 110, but are we even going to release a 1.7 anymore? That's like the question. Is like once we enter in freeze zone for 110, we start doing release candidates within the next coming month. When is the drop frame?
Every time I get really antsy about this sort of thing, the pushback I get is we still want to make sure that we're capable of releasing in the event of like a security related patch. Even though, like, according to our docs, yeah, we only support, when 110 is out the door, we technically only support 110.1.8.1.9 or 110.1.9.1.8. Like, we still kind of sort of have this fuzzy, but we'll support 1.7 if there's something super critical that has to happen. So we usually, historically, I think we've waited until a couple weeks into the next release cycle before we drop that off. But I'd love to, like, clarify that. From a steering committee perspective, I think that's something that the release SIG gets to define rather than the project as a whole, but it does have like end user implications and security implications and stuff like that.
Specifically for 1.6, we waited about a month until the release manager was happy with that.
Yeah, because I mean, that should sort of, it's like, when does that release manager stop doing their job, right? Whenever their role goes away, all the supporting infrastructure for it, such as the ability to cut releases on that branch, should also go away. But I don't know, like, that is a hard and fast documented thing. Okay, silence is assent. So, yeah, I think like if you do find areas, Tim, where that seems weird, let's try and identify it to see if we can smooth that out, because progress has been made. It's just sort of you didn't notice it, I guess. All right, Josh, you wanted to ask a little bit about Outreachy. Also, we're 3 minutes.
So just real quick, and I guess we'll finish this up in the Slack channel or something. We participated in the last round of Outreachy's internships for folks who are underrepresented in computing. Kubernetes participated in Outreachy on the last round with some SIG CLI projects. Paris and I have been looking at doing another round of Outreachy, but this hinges on finding SIGs who have projects that they're interested in entering somebody on. I was thinking that test infra from the number of sort of open to-dos would be good, but the issue obviously is somebody having being able to make a time commitment for mentoring. Mentoring is somewhat time consuming. We're saying it averages about 5 hours a week. If there's anybody who's interested in this, please hit me up via Slack. I'm in SIG testing and elsewhere.
Kind of along those lines, I've had a couple people reach out to me asking about, I want to contribute to SIG testing, where and how can I help? And so I went to go point them to our lovely list of well-groomed, categorized help wanted issues and realize, what if, maybe if you like sort that list by date, you can at least see the ones that have been touched most recently, but the rest of them might be in need of a good scrubbing. So I'm going to try and go through at least all of the existing things that are tagged as help wanted. If you know of low-hanging fruit, please just /help it.
I think we also specifically, this is maybe an issue for Contrabex, but I think we still need a label that distinguishes between we want help on this and this is a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
We had one and it got removed somehow.
Oh, that discussion. Yeah, the difference between help wanted and 4 new contributors. And honestly, I'm totally fine seeing the 4 new contributors label come back. It just like make that something that can also be added via bot command. Totally happy to see that discussion taken up in Contribex.
Okay, because I would add that for anyone going through that list, I just took a quick poke through, and definitely a number of these are not trivial new contributor things. They're things where nobody's working on them, and we acknowledge that it should happen, but they're not trivial.
Okay. I will see if that's something I can do anything about.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're 5 minutes past time. Thanks so much for your time. See you all next week. Happy Tuesday.